Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with our pre-meeting. So we'll start off with Aquatics Facility and Recreation Center fees and program rates update. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, good evening. Just like with respect to the golf course conversation that we had a number of weeks ago, we'd like to bring forward some recommendations, particularly at this point in time, given its implication with respect to the seasons we're about to enter into and prepare for, and certainly also in light of budget conversations that are forthcoming. So if I could turn some time over to Mr. Cortez to walk us through some of these issues, I'd sure appreciate that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Cortez.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, much like Carter said, I tried to tie some things back to the increase in fees that we probably need to undertake. Tonight it'd be aquatics in the rec center. Now, we haven't done this for quite some time, meaning it goes back about 4 or 5 years since we last had a rate increase. It just seems like it's never the right time, whether it's, you know, a slowdown in energy or a pandemic. It just seems like it's never opportune to talk about increasing fees. And so with that, unfortunately, we're kind of just to the point where we can't kick the can down the road any longer, and we'd like to do some modest, what we term as modest increases. I will say that the comparative data would suggest that the increases should be more than what we're proposing at this time. However, we kind of wanted to phase it in over the next, you know, year to 3 years to kind of try to lessen the pain on the end user. And furthermore, I would like to just encourage council to support us on this, because it is creating that pay-to-play environment where instead of taking more money from the general fund, you know, from the overall taxpayer, we're trying to kind of place a little bit more of the burden on the people that may actually use the facilities in question, whether that's Hogadon or aquatics in this case, or the rec center. We also do realize that there is some competition within Casper in some respects. You know, if you want to look at, say, the rec center and say fitness equipment, obviously we know that there's fitness centers in town, but we also think of the rec center as much more than that, meaning it does offer a gymnasium. It offers a lot of programming that you won't find at any other facility in town, other than maybe the YMCA is probably the closest entity that you'll find that offers a lot of what we offer at, say, the rec center. And the indoor aquatic center obviously is a kind of a amenity to its own, you know, within Casper. So with that, we're asking for some modest increases with the number of people we see coming through the doors and stuff. We see that, you know, helping us out, 20,000 here, 20,000 there. And as we all know, that reduces the burden on the general fund. It seems like a step in the right direction. And with that, I'd take any questions you might have.
Any questions from anybody? Anybody that's online have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you much.
Do you have anything else on that? No, sir. Okay. And we'll move on to the NAPA Integrated Business Solutions, IBS, 2-year summary and contract renewal. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A number of years ago, staff got together with potential partners as it relates to partnering with the private sector for our inventory services, primarily with our fleet division, or in conjunction with our fleet division, I should say. And after putting out an RFP for the idea in question, NAPA rose to the surface as being the partner of choice, and ever since then we've had a partnership in place with NAPA and their services in terms of getting parts for the needs that we have in the variety of fleet applications that we have. What we found is that not only do we have the right parts at the right time when we need them, we're able to turn vehicles and equipment around much quicker, and we don't have that waiting time in our facility for parts to be had. We don't have employees running back and forth to places throughout the community to try to chase parts down and those kinds of things. So in a lot of ways, I would say that this partnership, this in my opinion, an innovative approach to trying to deal with this issue appears to be working. I thought it'd be helpful, however, for our fleet manager to come and in partnership with NAPA, Mr. Watson, and go over some of the numbers with you and entertain any questions you might have with regard to what this looks like and how this works. So if I could then defer some time to our fleet manager and our Napa partner, we'd be pleased to entertain any questions that you might have. Certainly, the end result that we need you to be considerate of is whether or not indeed this partnership should continue for another couple of years. That's ultimately the punchline, whether or not you feel comfortable enough with this relationship to continue this relationship moving forward. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I defer the floor.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Watson, and I am the owner of Napa Auto and Truck Parts here in Casper, Wyoming. I've been asked to take a few minutes to kind of give you the concept of what Napa IBS is. IBS stands for Integrated Business Solutions, and the key word there is solutions. When we first started the discussion with the city, the biggest issue in this division was a lack of structure, and it was lacking in efficiency. They needed someone that could prevent obsolescence in their inventory, improve productivity, and reduce overall transactional costs. These are the items within our small business that we handle day in and day out. NAP IBS is a nationally recognized entity. There's over 400 of these business solutions around the country. Some of those that you may be familiar with, City of Denver, Denver Water has been a partner for over, since 2014. XL Energy, also hubbed out of Denver, has been a solution partner since 1995. So therein lies a lot of, over and over recognition that this provides a good service for those type outfits. Some that are closer, City of Boise, Idaho, the County of Salt Lake City. The reason I bring some of these large entities up is basically to give you a look into the ability to connect and utilize the collective buying power to piggyback upon national agreements to provide the city with a networking for discounts and sourcing of its parts. As you can imagine, with facilities around the country of this size, vendors can give volume buying discounts because Napa IBS can act as one large buying group. One of the biggest misunderstandings that we'd like to put forth today is that this is just a service where you just buy Napa parts. That, as you will see, is not the case. It is a part of it, and at that, you do guys get a discount for that. But we look to local vendors as a first option, and ultimately, that's all we do is provide options to the city, and ultimately, in conjunction with Dan and myself, we worked hand in hand. Ultimately, the city makes the decision on where they get it. We just give them options. We also look closely with the fleet and other divisions to stock our shelves with the inventory that the fleet needs. Having the right parts at the right time increases productivity and overall efficiency of the maintenance facility. We do all the planning and the sourcing to have the parts at the right place at the right time, and having an on-site dedicated parts room means no longer having technicians chasing parts or waiting for long delivery times from multiple vendors. The inventory on our shelves, this is an important point, the inventory on our shelves doesn't cost the city anything until we sell it to the city. So you don't have any inventory dollars tied up in obsolescent parts, which was a major issue And we're currently working on that, trying to get rid of some of the city's obsolete parts where you've sold the equipment or otherwise you don't need the parts for it. We integrate seamlessly with increased fill rates and mechanic efficiency, and we provide 2 employees over there that are, as Dan can attest to, they're a testimony to being very, very professional. They're a huge asset that we are providing to the city. Lastly, I'd like to add, we were approached last May because of this. We were approached last May to provide the PPE and the protective equipment to the city because it made for a nice option for the city employees in the departments to have centralized purchasing to go to for their personal equipment and their protective gear. So, you know, that's a testimony to it too. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dan, and he can kind of facilitate how it's working on the city side.
I don't know if I can do any better. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I agree with everything Mark had said. I was lucky enough to actually start working fleet when Napa was already in place. And the customer service and the professionalism that those 2 employees show down there to not only fleet, but to the entire city of Casper and their service and their parts and everything else. It's worked very, very well. I can't add much to it unless there's questions that you have on the memo, if you've had a chance to read through your memo.
Anybody have any questions? Councilman Cathy.
I know this has been mainly for your vehicles and mechanical equipment. We've got into the PPE part of it. Along those lines, can the turnout gear for the fire department come through this same program? Because that's a very expensive program in our replacement program that we do with that. And I didn't know if that could be something that could fall under this type of a contract as well.
My opinion, it could, and it would work, but that would be something that would have to come up from different avenues.
Okay, but I was just curious because, yeah, that's...
And I do believe that's what Mark has been working for, and other areas within the city, and not only fire, but other, maybe even buildings and structures. There might be other avenues we can look at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Nell.
Thank you, Mayor. This is your baby. We're not micromanagers. Is this the way you want to go? Is this the way we should go? Is this really what you want? Is it working? You understand what I'm saying?
Yep, I do. I understand, yes, sir, and I do believe this is what you want, and this is working.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We're good. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to School Resource Officer Program and the Shoreland County School District Budget. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This question, or this topic, this subject, came as a result of a couple things. First of all, the school district indicated to us that indeed, in terms of the decline in I want to call it enrollments, but the technical term is ADM, actual kids in their district is declining. And consequently, the district needs to reconcile its expenses with respect to the statutory formula that will provide them their operational funds based on the decline in enrollment projected for the next year or so. Accordingly, the district has indicated that an effort to reconcile those numbers would include a reduction in the amount of officers that the district helps to pay for on a 70-30 basis, by the way, with regard to the next school year. And given that we have contracts for multiple years, this obviously will implicate probably a number of years from this point forward. So what they're proposing is that indeed the amount of officers that we will have on campus starting July 1, or essentially this next school year, if you will be 6 versus 10. The advantage that that number has for us that remains is that indeed we still will be able to equip each of the secondary schools, the junior highs and the high schools, with a stationed officer, if you will, and still provide the opportunity for a couple floaters, so to speak, to bounce around to the elementary schools as needs require. I would like to tell you that the relationship with the school district, in my opinion, has been really pace setting as it relates to protecting our campuses and protecting our children, being able to respond much more quickly with things that happen on campus, as well as an example for what, how this can work around the state. So I've just been really, really pleased with this relationship. I would tell you that even though they are proposing dropping our core, this team from 10 to 6, that does not diminish in any way the relationship that the city has with the school district. This is not meant to be a reflection of the relationship not working or the service not being, appreciated and needful, but rather simply a means to try to reconcile their ADM numbers with regard to what the statutory calculation will provide from now on. Certainly, I think if that calculation were to increase over time, then the need to have more officers back on campus could ostensibly increase as well. But for now, we are going to plan for 6 officers. We've shared numbers back and forth with the district as to what that means and what their bills will look like and so on. The district has the option, of course, of determining whether or not 6 is appropriate. If they want 8, and they end up telling us before July 1 that they'd rather have 8 instead of 6, we'll be pleasantly surprised and we'll plan accordingly. But for now, we're going to play it kind of conservative and estimate 6 officers, and we're developing operational plans around that type of support. So I wanted to get the opportunity for you to sort of consume this information, ask any questions that you might have. Obviously, this too has budget implications, as many of our topics will from now on out. So if there's homework we need to do or other conversations you'd like to have, we'd like to have that opportunity to prepare for that in advance. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. The only comment I want to make on this is it is unfortunate, and I've mentioned this to you before. I know we are spoiled to have 10. There was a time we only had 2, and so one at each of the high schools, and so we were pretty spoiled to have 10. So if there is a need to cut that back to an 8 or a 6, it looks like more like a 6. I still think we're able to accomplish somewhat of that mission that we set out 3 or 4 years ago when we first had this conversation with the school district, when they wanted to do that. The other note to make is that we know that more cuts will probably be coming down the pike, in different areas of the school district. We know that. We've heard those things, which is just a fact of life with where we're at. And you said how we have our conversations here about our economic impact as well as our budget. But I understand it. Doesn't mean I'm happy that we have to do this. I'd rather have 10, but I also know that we're still blessed to have the 6 if that's what the direction they end up going. So anyway, just wanted a little food for thought and let them know. And the SROs are very dearly loved by the students, and so they do a fantastic job. And when I'm in the schools, they just adore those guys and gals. Just some of them just have deep relationships with those people. So we're blessed to have them as well. So Chief, just pass that along, that I know that they're doing a fantastic job in the schools. So thank you.
Councilwoman Lutz.
Just because I know that this question might not come up today, but it'll come up eventually. Those 4 individuals, are we able to reappropriate them throughout the department, or is this just an elimination of 4 positions?
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, thank you for that question. This will not precipitate a need to lay off anybody or anything like that at all. We have the fortunate position of being, well enough below the sworn authorized cap, if you will, to the extent that we will simply take some officers and put them back on the street or back in different assignments throughout the organization. and they'll get back to duties that they were doing prior to being assigned to the campus and that kind of thing. So no, we will not have to incorporate layoffs. We'll not have to reduce the amount of officers on the street. We should be fine in that regard.
Councilman Nell.
Until we quantify or qualify how much money of that $1 billion the state of Wyoming is going to get, which I'm assuming the schools are going to get a fair chunk of, are we a little premature yet talking about this? I guess is my question.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I think that's a fair question. Because I think you're right. I think both the city and the state, as well as the school district, will probably benefit from some of those dollars. To what extent, we don't know yet. That's for sure. But the superintendent is the one who is concerned that indeed the applicability of those dollars would not extend to efforts like this. And so I don't believe that he views those dollars as being available to fund these kinds of services. And so I suppose that if the district were to learn differently, they may come back and say, hey, maybe we can do 2 more officers or whatever. They know that indeed, if that's what they want, we will try to fill that order, so to speak. So at this point, it looks like that's not possible, but again, we'll all be pleasantly surprised if it should happen that way.
Councilman Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question in regards to, as Ray brought up earlier, we used to just have 2, and I know at some point in the past several years we had increased that. I'm a data guy, and so I'm just curious, are we tracking, number of incidents in schools or any other metrics that would measure the impact of these SROs in the schools so that we can get an idea later on, if times get better, we're deciding whether to send more SROs back to the school. We have an idea of what impact that would have in the district or what impact taking them out will have on the district. That's information I'd be curious to know. Thank you.
Chief?
Mayor, Councilman, I see Carter's making notes. I just wanted to try to address that at least preliminary while we gather that data. Please bear in mind that anytime we're working with the youth of our community, those are generally under the auspices of long-term goals. And I don't think we're going to see the results of that increased presence in the school for quite some time as they become older, become adults themselves, and what the crime rate is in that population group. It will take some time to see all of the fruit of that come out. But I did want to take the official stance of unequivocally, we have example after example of the relationship that the officers have built with the youth, and those youth have come to the officers and confided in them a very amazingly egregious, heinous crimes, things that have gone on. We have story after story that had it not been for our presence in the school and the time that the officers had spent gaining a relationship with those students, we would not be aware of those crimes. So we have a multitude of examples where that relationship engendered the conversation that led to people that needed help getting help on more than one occasion. And I would be remiss if I didn't stand here and say that when you add those together, they are worth every penny of school district expenditure and city of Casper expenditure, because some of those have been so startling in their nature. So I'll be happy to do the research for you. The officers, the SROs themselves are quite busy. They respond to a wide variety of things, and we do our best to keep the school district apprised. I even try to forward that information to Carter. But those SROs, they are busy.
Okay, anybody else? We're online.
Yeah, I've got something. This is Amber Pollock. I would like to see, thanks Chief for that information, but I agree with Councilman Gamroth, though I do think that is probably, we should get it on our agenda to be producing some sort of report from that program on a periodic basis, maybe every 3 years or 4 years, or, you know, longer term sort of data gathering sort of effort there, particularly if we do feel like it is being very impactful. To me, that would make the case stronger to continue it, or, you know, help other communities that are maybe looking at doing something similar, to give them some insight. And I just think it would be helpful for citizens, for the schools as well. And so I think gathering some data from both what's happening inside the police department, the schools, et cetera, that can be turned into some sort of report periodically would be beneficial in this program.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Anything else on that, Mr. City Manager? Okay. Agenda review, do you have anything on that?
Mr. Mayor, we do have some follow-up items for your formal review this evening, not the least of which would be with regard to the tobacco ordinance that we spent some time with last week, as well as the Coates Road local assessment district, sorry, the term escaped me, and of course the budget amendment, of which we do have a small correction that we need to make in terms of where some dollars are going to show up in the budget that's listed on the amendment. And beyond that, that's all I really have.
Okay. Anybody else, anything on agenda review? All right. And we'll go ahead and get started then with tonight's council meeting. So before we begin this evening, I would like to remind everyone to silence their cell phones at this time. And I now call the March 16th, 2021 regular council meeting to order, with all members being present. Are we still gonna, are we gonna use our buttons up here tonight or not? Yeah. Okay, all right. Council meetings are also televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. Please join Vice Mayor Pacheco in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's why you're sitting so close. You're welcome. Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the March 2nd, 2021 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on March 12th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, second by Councilman Johnson. Any amendments? Any abstention or nay votes?
I would like to abstain as I was not present.
Okay. All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote.
With the abstention of Councilmember Lutz noted, motion passed.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the March 2nd, 2021 executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Johnson, second by Councilman Gamroth. Any amendments? Any abstention or nay votes?
I would also like to abstain.
All voting aye? Aye. Please record the vote.
With the abstention of Councilmember Lutz noted, motion passed.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the March 16th, 2021 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Nell, second by Councilwoman Lutz. Any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Now is the time we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with council to come forward. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we ask the following. Please state your name and address. Direct all questions, comments to the mayor and only the mayor. No personal attacks on staff or council will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be referred to our city manager. Questions posed by speakers may or may not be responded to by council members. Presentations will be limited to 5 minutes and duplication of speakers will not be allowed, nor will time extensions be permitted. Please note that public hearings and ordinances each have their own comment period. Please hold your comment on these items until we have reached them. Anybody want to address council? Okay. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the ordinance amending section 13.04.060. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. We have one exhibit. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from John Henley to the Casper City Council and J. Carter Napier, dated March 10, 2021.
Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is staff's attempt to try to clean up city ordinances as it relates to statutory changes that have occurred recently, as it relates to requirements that they mandate pertaining to permits that we would issue to construct, install, or modify water distribution network improvements or changes, as well as sanitary sewer collection facilities along those lines as well. Without a doubt, Mr. Henley can go through a lot more detail if you'd like, but the general emphasis behind this is housekeeping measures in order to have our ordinances consistent with statute.
Okay. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of issues involving the ordinance, please approach the lectern. Okay, at this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issues involving the ordinance to please approach the lectern. All right, there being no one to speak for or against the issues involving the ordinance, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance amending section 13.04.060.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Councilman Johnson. Discussion? Any amendments? Any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of Essential Services Edition Number 2. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 exhibits. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Liz Becker to J. Carter Napier, dated March 3, 2021. And exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated February 25, 2021.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, or I'm sorry, Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you'll see here soon on the exhibit being put forward on your screens here, the impetus behind this vacation and replat is for the purpose of creating the right-of-way for what is being termed as Memorial Way. Many of you are familiar not only with the project that Evansville has been working on for quite some time to develop and construct a means of egress out of their community. A number of years ago, sort of at the genesis of this project, the town of Evansville came forward to the city council of the day and asked for right-of-way that would be indicated on the exhibit in sort of the yellow shading here. This right-of-way is for the purposes of constructing that street, again, that serves as an egress out of their community. And as you can see on the plat here, would tie into Metro Road, not too far apart from the turn into the solid waste facility that the city of Casper owns. All this land is land that the city of Casper owns, and again, land that the city has been willing to turn over for the construction of this street, particularly along the condition that indeed this street would be built to city standards for a rural section, if you will. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, this is the first reading of 3 wherein this plat would be approved and this street would ultimately be constructed. We're thinking this coming construction season.
Okay, council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the issues involving Central Services Edition Number 2 to please approach the lectern. All right, at this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issues involving Central Services Edition Number 2, please approach the lectern. All right, there being no one to speak for or against the issues involving Central Services Edition Number 2, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance approving the vacation and replat creating the Central Services Edition Number 2.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, second by Councilman Gamroth. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Nell.
2 questions, Carter, if I may. First off, I'm assuming since this is going to be a right-of-way for the city of Evansville, they're going to pay for they're paying for this, we're not? Is that correct?
Councilman.
Secondly, just to make it a 2-part, then who's required to maintain it after that, after it is constructed? And lastly, how much impact is this going to have on traffic out at the solid waste department?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Nell, the easiest answer to your question is indeed the town of Evansville is going to pay for all this construction. And so without a doubt, they will shoulder that construction expense. As it relates to the maintenance and so forth, I'd really probably better refer to Mr. Beamer to kind of walk us through some of those elements, as well as for your third question, if I could, so that it's more clear as to what the commitments will be.
Mayor, Councilman, that's a very good question, but this is not going to be Evansville right away. It's platted as city right away, so Evansville can build a street in it. But once it is constructed, it will fall under the city's purview for ownership and maintenance. So 20 years from now, you can expect us to have to, or maybe even 10 or 15 years from now, to do some kind of surface treatment for that roadway. And as far as additional traffic up to the landfill, it will provide the residents of Evansville a mechanism to get there, but they have to get there anyway if they're going to go to solid waste. So it's just a different platform. You'll see it's shifted to the west of where the current Metro Road is currently, and we do get traffic backed up to that essentially 90 in the road, so we moved it further to the west to avoid that conflict.
Councilman McCarthy.
I noticed on this plat that you're showing that 80-foot right-of-way starting to get on top of the Wyco pipeline easement. Is that a good place to be putting that on top of that pipeline?
Mayor, Councilman, the orientation of this right-of-way has been negotiated pretty extensively between the town of Evansville, the city of Casper, and all the pipeline owners as to where and when and how this road can be constructed. It's a permitted use, but obviously there's a lot of terrain that we have to work with, or that the contractor's going to have to work with to get this road built. So this has all been negotiated with the easement holders and everybody else.
And as a follow-up, how much of this road will we be maintaining? Will we just be maintaining it to city limits and then Evansville takes over for the county and Evansville portion, or are we having to maintain more than that?
Mayor, Councilman, our ownership and responsibility ends at the city limits. So where you see that plat end on the east side, that's where our maintenance responsibilities end. And in fact, that's the only section of this road that's going to get paved at this time, because the council at that time said, if you're going to build a road, you have to build it to city standards. Evansville has elected to maintain a gravel road from that point into Evansville. So.
Councilman.
I have a question.
So, Mr. Beamer, this is a no-brainer. We've got somebody else that's willing to fund a road for us. I mean, really. Layman?
It's, Mayor, Councilman, it's also a mechanism to help Evansville out in the case of a railroad accident. They've only got really Curtis Street as a means of ingress and egress into their community. If there was an accident on that stretch of roadway, there is no other mechanism for Evansville to get out of that community in the case of a real emergency.
And we certainly want to be good neighbors. I was just more worried about the financial impact with the budget and that, you know, that we're coming into. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? That's what I was asking you.
Mayor, yeah, we are not putting any money into this initial construction.
Thanks.
Nor for this plat, for that matter. I mean, the town of Evansville is having to fork over to prepare this plat and to get it recorded and along those lines.
Do we have a question from one of the council members online?
I just had a question on the cost, but Andrew just answered that question, so thank you.
Okay. Andrew, I guess just to clarify, so it's going to be a gravel road going into Evansville now or not?
Mayor, that's correct, until Evansville can find the rest of the funds to actually pave inside their city limits. They've got CDBG and I forget some other federal funds that they're utilizing to build this road, but I think it's all getting expended for this initial construction. They don't have the funds to pave it all at this time.
Okay.
Carter, if you could, and Andrew, you probably know too, this answer, was this the conversation we had a few years ago when we were receiving those fundings that we were trying to allocate? And you're going to have to help me. You may not, you're going to look at me and go like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Ray. But a few years ago, we had those negotiations with the county and other municipalities about that funding. Was that part of this discussion, that they're utilizing that funding, Carter?
Mr. Mayor, Council.
If you could clean that up for me, that'd be
Vice Mayor,
great.
absolutely. There used to be a program at the state would allow for a certain amount of funds to come from the state to counties, wherein each of the counties and the cities and towns and so forth would negotiate within their own localities as to how to use those dollars. This is one of those aspects of that, you know, long gone program. And so they just haven't been able to expend those funds until now because they've had to collect other funds and find other dollars in order to make a project happen. Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Any amendments? Any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of fiscal year 2021 budget amendment number 4. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Mr. Attorney, sorry. I'm waiting for you, Carter. I do. I have 2 exhibits, Mr. Mayor. Correspondence from Tom Pitlick to J. Carter Napier dated March 10, 2021, and exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune dated March 9, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is the amendment mechanism that we talked about to some detail a couple weeks ago. We are looking at just over a $23 million amendment, the vast majority of which is meant to facilitate the receipt of CARES dollars that the city has been very fortunate enough to receive at this point in time. And with that, this is a one reading process, and that this is a resolution, and then we'll be able to match the city's budget passed almost a year ago now with regard to the realities of what we dealt with over the past 12 months.
All right. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the budget amendment, please approach the lectern. All All right, at this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the budget amendment, please approach the lectern. There being no one to, excuse me, speak for or against the budget amendment, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair would entertain a motion to, by resolution, authorize fiscal year 2021 budget amendment number 4.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Nell, second by Councilman Kathy. Discussion?
This,
Councilman
I just
Nell.
want to be clear, this is what we went through last week with
Yep.
Mr.
Pitlick.
Piplick?
Pitlick.
Pitlick, okay. I just wanted to make sure I read through it, and I was pretty sure it was. So thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Vice Mayor.
So one of the things I appreciated about former council member Charlie Powell is he would go through and being able to discuss, to say, okay, look, we're making these big, there's lots of big numbers here, and try to have a good conversation to say why we have this. And so from the optics, the outside optics of it can look like, well, the city's just spending tons and tons of millions and millions of dollars. And I think that while I can't do justice of what Charlie used to be able to do, this is something that's planned. You know, when we look at trying to do something, the money's there. And maybe Carter, if you'd want to help me with that as well, as I'm not quite as eloquent as Charlie used to be when he used to kind of sum it up for that. And as the community looks at those big numbers and says, well, I thought we were in a budget crunch. I thought these types of things were happening. And so why is the city doing something with this adjustment? So if you wouldn't mind, take maybe 2 seconds to just say that, Carter, that'd be great.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you. It is tempting to see these amounts of dollars and so forth, to think that indeed the city is requesting budget authority to have projects in the neighborhood of 23 million additional projects and so on. And in fact, that is absolutely not the case. The vast majority of these not motions, but actions and adjustments and so on that are taking place are really to reconcile what it is that we've gotten by way of revenue we did not expect. There are a few expenses that we didn't expect, as well as carry forward dollars that transition beyond budget years in order to get projects complete and purchases made that were pre-authorized and evaluated and vetted by previous councils. So thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. That's exactly right. This is not a request for expanding the budget in order to spend that amount of money on new projects.
Thank you.
Correct.
Any further discussion? Okay, any amendments? Any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance repealing ordinance number 54-00 as codified by Article 4, Chapter 9.40 of the Casper Municipal Code, and creating a new Article 4 of Chapter 9.4 of the Casper Municipal Code titled Sale of Nicotine Products.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gamroth, second by Councilwoman Lutz. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Okay, discussion? Councilman Nell.
Sorry, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This includes the amendment that was brought forth by Councilwoman Pollock and Vice Mayor Pacheco, correct? Okay, thank you.
It doesn't yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, it does not yet?
It's coming, yeah.
Okay,
Those are the two amendments that will come up.
Okay, council discussed amendments to this ordinance at the last work session, and 2 proposed amendments were drafted and included in the packet materials. I would recommend considering each amendment separately, followed by any additional amendments. Proposed amendment number 1, page 111 in the council packet. Do you want to make the motion?
Your Honor, I move to adopt proposed amendment number 1, modifying 9.40.180 pertaining to the penalties for the underage purchase of nicotine products.
All right, there was a motion by Vice Mayor Pacheco. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Gamroth. Discussion?
Which amendment is this one specific?
This is the proposed amendment number 1. Okay, if there's no discussion, any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Did you have something, Councilman? No?
No, sir, I was.
Okay, okay. All right, please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion to amend passed.
Yep. Okay, optional proposed amendment number 2, page 113 in the council packet. Councilmember Pollock, could you make that motion?
I'm sorry, did you ask if I did make the motion or if I could?
If you could, I can read it for you if you would like.
Sure, I would make the motion that we adopt proposed amendment number 2. But yeah, maybe if you'll read it, since I'm over the phone, it'll be hard.
Okay, and that'd be modifying 9.40.190 pertaining to the underage possession of nicotine products. So there's been a motion by Councilmember Pollock. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Lutz. Discussion? Councilman Nell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say, I've never seen this before, and so I certainly wouldn't have brought it up in discussion if I'd have known we were going to be talking about these amendments. So I don't know where this came from. It was just pointed out to me.
It's on your seat.
I've never seen one of these before.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, huh? Oh, well, that goes to show you that I just read what's on here. So anyway, I'm sorry that I jumped in earlier, but thank you for the hard work. I wanted to recognize Vice Mayor Pacheco and Councilwoman Pollock. They put a lot of work into this, meeting with the right people and getting us back on track where we needed to be, and they should be recognized for their diligence. And so thank you for that, both of you, because it's made this a much better ordinance now.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any abstention or nay votes on the motion to amend? All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion to amend passed.
Are there any other amendments? Okay. Any further discussion on the amended? The whole amended. Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple things about the whole, now that we've voted on the amendments, before we move on the amended ordinance. I want to recognize Councilmember Pollock also for her work, and also being a part of that ad hoc committee. But I also want to recognize the Mercer Family Resource Center also for bringing this to my attention, because I tend to be a little bit aloof sometimes and didn't pay attention. I thought, oh yeah, we're going to be in the, in adherence with the state, and that's good, and we need to move forward with that. But I didn't realize the full impact of that, because I'm just not a policy wonk, so I just don't get some of it. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work that they did, helping us to get the verbiage and some of the information to John about the effects of nicotine and tobacco on young people, and also the benefits of tobacco cessation and tobacco nicotine education. So I think it's a thoughtful use of our law to be able to help young people, and I don't think it's an overreach or anything like that. And so I'm really proud of something that we tried to craft for that. So, Councilmember Pollock, I don't know if you have anything you want to add or anything like that.
Yeah, I've spoken on the last couple of meetings, so I'll be brief, but for me, I think what we have here in front of us, we've come up with an ordinance that achieves all the goals that I think we had. One, getting in line with the state statute, but two, finding a way that our new ordinance will still continue to serve our health goals for our minors, our substance abuse goals in our community, and then something that's going to work for the police department and for our court systems. And the way we had it worded before, there were kind of issues with across the board with different impacts on the police department, different impacts on the court system, and different impacts on the outcomes for youth tobacco cessation intervention. So I think what we've done now is addressed all of those things. And so I'm happy, I think that we've found a solution that can move us forward.
Okay. Any other discussion or amendments? Okay, there being no further amendments or discussion, we will now vote on the ordinance on third reading. Is there any abstention or nay votes?
Be voting nay.
Okay, all voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
With the vote of Councilman Johnson noted, motion passed.
Thank you. Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a vacation replat, subdivision agreement, and zone change for the Trails West Estates Number 4 Edition subdivision in the city of Casper, Wyoming.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Johnson, second by Councilman Nell. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. Okay, with no public comment, discussion. All right, any amendments? Any abstention or nay votes? And I'll vote.
I will be abstaining.
And I also will be abstaining. All voting aye? Aye. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Egerbretson and Mayor Friel's abstention noted, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance creating City of Casper, Wyoming Local Assessment District Number 158, ordering the construction of improvements therein, describing the same, directing the preparation of plans and specifications therefore, providing for the publication of notice to contractors, fixing the boundaries of said district, ratifying action previously taken, and prescribing details in connection with said district.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gamroth, second by Councilman Johnson. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Okay, with no public comment, discussion. Any amendments? Any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 9A1, a memorandum of agreement, quitclaim deed, and drainage, utility, and access easement with the Wyoming Department of Transportation for the South Poplar Street and West First Street project. Item 9A2, agreement with Installation and Service Company, Inc. for the 2021 CPU asphalt repair project. And item 9A3, a contract for outside city water service with LL Enterprises.
Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Johnson, second by Councilman Gamroth. City Manager, would you like to make any comments on any items? No. Any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the consent minute action title.
Appointing Larry Madsen to the Emeco Reuse Agreement Joint Powers Board.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda item just read.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Johnson, second by Councilwoman Lutz. Any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
At this time, we ask council members to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you so much to the road crews and the utility crews and everybody who has been working really hard to get everything back up and going here, and also to the folks and citizens who have been helping out, dig out neighbors and plow sidewalks and everything like that. So, keep at it. Just offer some words of encouragement. I know everybody's sore and wet and tired, and but your efforts to help improve accessibility and help people get around town are appreciated by me.
Thank you. Councilwoman Engebretson.
I agree with Councilman Pollock. I just urge people to maybe kind of use a little bit of patience. I've been getting a lot of phone calls for the snow plows and things, and people are getting a little upset, but I've even had snow pictures, so I've even showed them mine. So got somebody out there digging me out right now. So I do appreciate the road crews very much for all their hard work, and the firefighters and ambulances. It's been a tough one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Nell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just an item of interest. We have spent a tremendous amount of time on the parkways. And more this week than ever, I have been inundated with discussion amongst our constituents. A lot of them not necessarily live in that area, but they're traveling that road a lot. And they agree with our concern as far as people being able to park on the street, because we all know it's highly dangerous when you have 2 lanes of traffic and cars on both sides. However, one of the things they brought up, and I think it's extremely prudent, and I tend to agree with them, we're charging, or we're asking to charge a $250 permit every year to park there. And every one of the people I talked to said, if we're gonna spend the money to pave that or to asphalt that and enhance a city property, we should get a waiver on a parking permit. And I said, well, that makes sense to me too. The only downfall I see is once you pave it and make it real nice, doesn't keep somebody else from being able to park there without having a permit in your window that goes for that space. And they also agreed with that, but they think the cost of having to replace the concrete or the asphalt and then pay $250 on top of it to park in front of their own house is unfair, and I'm inclined to agree with them. So I was wondering, I don't know what the correct way to go about this is, but I would sure like to revisit the permitting fee if people are willing to put that money in to enhance the city's property. So that's all I have.
Okay. Councilman Cassidy.
We have been thanking the snowplow drivers and the EMS people, which I definitely want to go along with that. But today was the first day that the sanitation people have been out picking up garbage cans, and they deserve a big attaboy as well. I watched one of those trucks because I was on the route today, and I watched one of them struggling to get around my street. So an attaboy goes out to those drivers and those guys as well, trying to make the pickups and take care of our sanitation department. So those people a lot of times go unnoticed, and it was a struggle for them as well. So I want to thank them as well.
Councilwoman Lutz.
Echo what everyone said about individuals and crews trying to get the roads cleared, but also like Amber said, I think a lot of kudos go out to neighbors and individuals really helping out one another, whether that's helping dig out cars or helping. We had somebody get stuck on our street at 11 o'clock last night. And so just individuals helping other individuals, I think that speaks a lot about our community.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson.
Nothing. What everybody else said. don't want to beat a dead horse.
Councilman Gamros.
I would also concur. I'd also like to just make note, I know Lisa was there to join me, at least at the location I was at. Perhaps someone else was at other locations, but we had the pleasure of going to the Olivia Caldwell Foundation's Butterfly Ball Adult Prom over the weekend, and really great organization. And so I just wanted to share a couple stats from that foundation. They have raised over $500,000 and leveraged that to raise another $2.5 million. That's helped cure 8 childhood cancers, including the one that took Olivia, who the foundation is named after. It's helped fund 30 research projects, and in 2019, they partnered with, I believe it's Children's Hospital Colorado, WMC, and CU Medical to do outreach services, and those specialty outreach services are for have been used, I guess, by 1,400 children, 5,000 visits, saved them over 1 million miles driving to specialty clinics in other states. And so not only the expense that travel takes, but also the time. And, it's just really hard for families in that situation. So I just wanted to recognize Olivia Caldwell Foundation for all the good work you're doing. Had a fantastic time at their fundraiser over the weekend. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. Obviously, just want to say, Carter, please pass along to everybody all their hard work. Obviously, you heard it all from everybody from council, so I'm sure the mayor will also say something as well, so we're very, very grateful. A couple meetings coming up on the 19th, this Friday. I've got my LGBTQ advisory, which I will have that on Friday afternoon. Kathy board meeting on Monday, so I'll have that as well in the afternoon, so that's coming up. And I'm trying to think, I think that's it for right now. I know there's more, but I don't have them on my calendar yet. So the other part that I just wanted to say very, very quickly is as we move forward to opening up the state much more, and as we're moving towards the end of mask mandates, I still think that we still need to be very cautious and understand the level of where we're at and what we're doing. I know there's been a big push for to open up our economy, which is needed and necessary. Our private businesses need to function and need to move, and I think we can be safe while we're opening up our private businesses. It's their lifeblood, and so we need to continue to support them to do those things. We're not out of the woods yet. A dear friend of mine passed away this weekend from COVID, young man, and so the threat is still there. While it's not a massive threat, it's still there, and I think we still need to be empathetic, compassionate, and understanding of our community and those people that are around us, especially the elderly and those that are vulnerable. I encourage people to continue to wear a mask when they can't social distance, and I also encourage people to get the vaccine. I think that it's a simple thing to do, and so felt like I wasn't going to say anything this week, but after my friend passed away and I lost an aunt, somehow we have all been affected by that, by COVID. And so I certainly understand freedoms, and I don't ever want to infringe upon those things, but I think we can always still be cautious and understanding of other people as well. And so mask up when you can, and the vaccine, there's plenty of vaccine, I think, in this community from what I'm hearing. So as they keep continuing to open up certain age groups, please consider doing that as well. Thank you, and be safe out there.
Okay, we're supposed to have the water board meeting today, but that got pushed till next week. So that won't be happening. We're having I guess we never really said, but we're having the meeting early tonight just due to the fact that we were expecting a little bit more snow this evening and trying to get everybody out of here at a decent time. To go back to the snow removal itself, I think they're doing an outstanding job out there. I've been on calls every morning at 7 a.m. with emergency management. Very well coordinated effort between everybody, and it's great. We've got the police department, fire department, state, county, city, snow crews, and everybody is just working hand in hand in getting this thing handled. So it's been a pretty good operation out there, and a lot of great communication with one another to get things done. So off of that meeting I'm not going to say it, but the WIND is not supposed to get really bad this week, so that's going to help out, obviously, in cleanup. Yeah, knock on wood. But that's going to help out in cleanup. And I think we have one more small system coming through, but it shouldn't, knock on wood again, should not get a lot of accumulation out of that. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. I have also received some phone calls. People are a little bit upset about where snow's going, but I don't know where you want us to put it at because there's so much of it. But trust me, the crews are doing everything they can to get the drainage opened up so that when this does in fact melt, it'll go the right place. We'll get to it as quick as we can, but there's just a crazy amount of snow out there. So, and then the last thing I want to say is, yes, today the mask mandate went away within the state, but the thing to keep in mind is I feel like we're going full circle back to when we started off with COVID. And just remember, if you go to a department store, you go to Home Depot, Menards, wherever it might be, if they ask you to wear a mask, it's their choice to have you wear one. And if you don't want to wear one, it's their choice to not let you in the store. So don't get mad at the person at the door. They're not the ones doing it. It's corporate in some other places saying that you have to do it. Go by the rules and just please don't beat up the guy at the door. Do what you got to do. Put the mask on and go take care of business. When you come back out, you can do whatever you want to do. So with that being said, that's all I have. The next meeting of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021 in the council chambers. And a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, April 6, 2021 in the council chambers. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have a matter to discuss regarding litigation, security, property, and personnel. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session, and at the conclusion of the executive session, reconvene this regular meeting solely for the purposes of adjournment of this regular meeting. Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Vice Mayor Pacheco. Sorry, Councilman Nell. Councilman Nell made the motion. There being a majority of members present and a motion to adjourn into executive session having been moved and seconded, and that motion requiring a 2/3 majority of council present. Any abstention or nay votes? All voting aye. Aye. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye. Motion passed.
A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned into executive session.